Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTGO Traders. My name is Terran, and I have with me the fantastic Gerry Thompson with us. Two-time Pro Tour winner and almost, well, I guess runner-up from the Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan in Modern. Gerry, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Just kind of brought you on here because actually, finishing second in the Pro Tour is an awesome feat, but you actually, lost to Lantern Control. How was that?
It's not great. It's not great, but
yeah,
I think it is cool that like Lantern is one of the weird decks in Modern. It kind of showcases like all the crazy stuff that you can do in the format. So having a deck like that win a Pro Tour, I think is probably a good thing rather than a bad thing.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that deck for a while, and I feel like it's just kind of like a byproduct of Modern, since of course the card pool is so large, and it's just one of those decks that, like, especially with this particular meta right now, it just kind of came out of nowhere as a silver bullet, and just kind of just dominated. Because I feel like as soon as I saw the matchup with you two and Luis, I saw the matchup and was just like, there's no way. Gerry almost has no way with that particular just against Lantern Control itself. As far as like the game one game plan, I mean, how did you feel about that?
It is really rough in the pre-board games where I have very little ways to actually interact with Ensnaring Bridge. Like, I needed a very specific, basically a very specific opening hand. Like, if I have like discard into a Young Pyromancer, maybe I can clock them. And if I have like a Kolaghan's Command in my opening hand, then maybe I can actually destroy an Ensnaring Bridge. But like, if a game goes long, I'm just toast.
Right. So we have that situation, and then so just kind of moving on from here, because everyone hopefully has seen the actual match there and the full event, which was fantastic. And you played as well as you possibly could. There was one play I think that I was like, I don't know if that was the best play or not possible, and that was the Ancient Stirrings and the Whir of Invention pick. I think it was with the Inquisition of Kozilek right there. That again, both of those were like, it was like double, like, oh my gosh, but either one of those moves is terrible. Do you think, as far as the play you went with, the line of play, you were just hoping that they wouldn't hit the blue mana for the Whir?
So I can take the Stirrings with a discard spell. They have Whir of Invention, but only 2 blue sources, and I have a Molten Rain in my hand. So I know that I'm going to be able to keep them off of Whir for a couple turns, and I don't know. I just felt like I kind of needed to make it so they had as few of their lock pieces as possible.
Right.
So if I just take the Whir and then they get to cast Ancient Stirrings, maybe they find Ensnaring Bridge or a Codex Shredder or what have you, and then I have this Molten Rain that also doesn't do very much, which is also kind of unfortunate. So I don't know. It felt like both Stirrings and Whir were pretty big threats, and right. if I take the Stirrings, maybe I can keep them off of Whir and then either draw like another land destruction or another discard spell or something, and actually get the Whir also. So I don't know, kind of greedy, but I think right. that might have been what I needed to do.
Yeah, I do think both lines of play were bad, as far as like just bad for just what he had in his hand. I do think I feel like if I was in your position, that was the best line of play possible for me. How do you prepare for like a Modern event like that with especially now with the diversity so wide?
A lot of it has to do with like you can't cram everything into 2 weeks, you know. So it's just like play as much Modern as possible. Like watch coverage or watch streams. Look at the deck lists that get posted for Magic Online or for like the random SCG Tour events and Grand Prix, and just try and familiarize yourself with the format as much as possible, and try to learn things like Death Shadow is pretty bad against like the Green-Red Valakut decks, for example. Like try and get like a general sense of how the matchups are, so that you don't have to learn all of that stuff in like the last few moments leading up to a tournament.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think for me right now, it's just Modern is in such a place. Well, maybe like last week, I guess. maybe not in the future. But Modern was in such a place where it felt like the 15 cards in your sideboard could almost not just be fit for every single matchup, just the way it's kind of just shaken out. But now that we have cards like Bloodbraid Elf and Jace the Mind Sculptor coming back in from this past week's announcements, how do you feel about those cards hitting the Modern format?
It's going to be crazy. I don't know. I'm certainly over here like brewing as much as possible, a little
Yeah,
bit more with Jace than with Bloodbraid Elf, but
sure.
I've been watching streams the last couple days also, and it it's most likely a product of people's decks being like rough and untuned and stuff, but
Right.
all the people who have been like playing with Jace and Bloodbraid have basically been getting smashed. So
Sure.
I don't know. There are decks like Burn and Tron and Affinity that are just naturally going to be good against those sorts of like cards and like the strategies that those cards go into. So
Absolutely.
it feels fine to me. It's just a matter of like how frustrating is Jace to play against, and similarly to Bloodbraid Elf a little bit, but probably not as much as Jace.
Right. I do think for me, as far as whenever he got unbanned for Jace, especially, I kind of like I cringe because of course we've all been through, Zendikar with him in standard, and so him coming into the modern format, it shakes it up quite a bit. I do think right now modern is in a place where it's a lot faster than Jace is at the moment. So I do think we have that on our side at least. But seeing cards or seeing decks like that Blue White Miracles deck that Seth had piloted or Saffron Olive had piloted on the Super League just kind of made me even further cringe and be like, I don't know, is it going to be good? Is it going to be good? Like I really hope it is. I kind of want it is, but at the same time I'm like, I don't know, maybe not. Like
It's definitely going to be good. I just think that it's probably going to end up being like a player in a sea of viable decks, right? I don't think
right,
that like either Jace or Bloodbraid is necessarily going to take over the format and dominate. And there are probably going to be games where, for 4 turns, you're just getting Fate Seal locked by Jace and it's not very fun. But I do think that Jace and Bloodbraid Elf are going to be beatable.
Yeah, I do agree, especially with Bloodbraid Elf. I think I have to see a convincing argument for Jace right now, just personally. I do really like Jace from just the fate sealing aspect. So I think as soon as it hits and you don't have a way to answer it, then I think that's just you're done. Kind of that way.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's okay. Like if a blue deck gets to 4 mana on a stable board, like if it's not like Jace the Mind Sculptor, like even like Jace Architect of Thought is probably going to like close the game in a similar way, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Man, it's just so much fun to see how like diverse Modern has been in the past couple weeks, and then now seeing Bloodbraid Elf and Jace come back into it, and just kind of seeing what happens from there. I had personally thought that Stoneforge Mystic instead of Jace would have been probably unbanned, since there's a little bit of more information for us in the Modern format at the moment. But seeing Jace come out, I do think that Masters 25 release coming up in the future does mean that of course Jace is going to be a bigger deal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I do think that there are some cards still on the ban list, like you mentioned, Stoneforge Mystic, maybe Green Sun Zenith, things like that, where it's like this is probably okay, right? Like if Jace the Mind Sculptor is okay, I assume like turn 3 Batterskull is okay. The point of comparison that people generally make is like people are casting Karn on turn 3. Like why can't we have a Batterskull?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. However, Batterskull, I don't know. I cringe when I hear that name. But Batterskull is a fantastic card. I agree as well. I do think it probably would be fine when you compare it to a turn 3 Karn. That's very, very true. Moving on from kind of the Pro Tour, I guess, and the Jace being unbanned, I kind of wanted to talk about just for a side moment here because I know your time is valuable. Right now, I guess in like the content creator realm, Pauper is kind of becoming like a bigger thing. What do you kind of think about Pauper at the moment?
Pauper's weird to me because like all these cards that are super powerful and have been banned in other formats, just like Gush and Gitaxian Probe, like all of these like really powerful cards are legal. And then for the most part, like the mana bases are pretty bad, but like a lot of the decks just look very goldfishy and degenerate. There's like the Tireless Tribe, Inside Out combo deck. There's like the various hexproof decks. There's just like a bunch of burn decks and stuff like Tron. I don't know. Like I've played a little bit of Pauper, and it kind of has that modern feel where it's like you're kind of doing your thing, they're kind of doing their thing, and we see what happens. But there aren't a whole lot of interaction points.
Right. I do think right now, because I've been doing a lot of, I guess, decks for the channel for Pauper, and it just feels like Modern Light or Modern Junior with just kind of random cards like Gush, things like that, where you're like, this, I feel like probably should be banned if someone looked at it a little bit deeper, from that side of the argument. I do think for me personally, I love Pauper it being as far as like if you're looking to not spend a lot of money on a deck. I think that's a cool idea. But I think from a playability standpoint, I do think that something has to be done for those kind of situations where it's just like this card is obviously amazing, and is banned in other formats for a reason, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Pauper's funny though because you mentioned like, oh, it's nice to be able to pick up a deck for like $20 or whatever, but then like as soon as that deck becomes good, like then the prices of all the cards skyrocket because a lot of the cards in Pauper aren't currently in print, so you get like these really weird price fluctuations to the point where it doesn't really feel like a Pauper format anymore.
Right. It is weird for that, and it's also weird kind of for like MTGO, because right now we have situations where like Chomano's Blessing is not that expensive in paper, but online because of the way it was printed, or not printed, I guess, digitally released online, we see this huge spike and kind of this discrepancy. It's just crazy because Pauper has become this format where it's kind of always been around for, or has been around for quite a while, and is finally now kind of risen up and been like, okay, now we're like kind of a real thing, kind of like how Frontier tried to be a real thing. But I do think Pauper, from like the onset, I think probably will be a much more real set, especially thanks to places like Channel Fireball and other tournament events kind of hosting that. What do you think as far as like that being like a real actual tournament? Do you think that could probably happen in the future?
I mean, I feel like the demand is certainly there. I mean, like the events have been firing on Magic Online for a long time, like you said, and this has just been like a recent thing where CFB has started hosting Pauper tournaments like as side events at Grand Prix and stuff. And where was I? There's like some Grand Prix where the Pauper event had like 300 people or whatever, and it's just like that's crazy. Like obviously people want to play, there is demand, so yeah, by all means, like they should definitely run events for it.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely get behind that and agree with that. I do kind of agree also that the more events we have, the higher those prices are going to go.
Yeah.
And it might turn into a weird modern format situation where some cards that are just random, there's a small printing of them, is going to jump up into the, standard quality size or standard marks as far as how much the price is. Speaking of standard, I guess we have kind of some format or some events coming up in the near future. How do you feel about standard as a format right now?
It looks really good. I mean, the way that Wizards has changed the way they share data through Magic Online has been really exciting.
Right.
I think on Monday they did like a deck list dump of like 40 decks, and then also today on Thursday they also released like another batch of deck lists, and like the format looks like really open and really cool. And I've been playing a few leagues here and there like the last few days and everything, and it's been really fun.
Yeah, I think right now from post bannings from standard itself, it's really opened up and just kind of turned into a whole format into itself. I'm really happy with standard, really happy with modern. Of course, we got to see what happens with Jason and Bloodbraid Elf, what comes from the next tournament from those. But I am kind of happy with Magic, I guess, in general right now.
Yeah, it seems like modern, standard for sure. If there is a sort of deck that you enjoy playing, like you can probably find something in that space that is viable and competitive.
Exactly. Well, I'm not going to take much more of your time. I really appreciate it that you coming on here and talking to me. Really appreciate your perspective on the actual Pro Tour, Modern, and of course Pauper. We talked about that for a couple seconds. But thank you so much, Gerry. And you have anything else to say?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.